Episode 98. The starting point of achievement is desire.
You're listening to the very best podcast in the world on health, wealth, and happiness. Please remember to leave a review and share with all your friends and family. And here is your host, Lars Hilser.
And we're almost to 100. I never thought we would get this far, but we're at episode 98 of the very best podcast in the world. And a warm welcome to your only source in the universe for personal supremacy through health, wealth, and happiness. So, as you have heard yesterday, I am in serious pain, but the pain meds are good. So it's like we're getting there. That being said, the episodes, like I announced yesterday, will be shorter this week and maybe even the next, because I need to keep my pie hole shut a little bit, not to overdo it. And so I have kind of chosen the episodes which promise to be completable, or the stories or the journeys or the adventures to be tellable in a rather short period of time, rather than the elongated random ramblings that you're used to. And so that being said, first of all, credit where credit's due. A big hi and a very big thank you to Ireland, where my friend Chris sent me quite motivating words about episodes that he'd heard. Very motivating words, in fact. And it's messages like that kind of keep me up at night in a less literal sense, but to continue to spin the wheel, because obviously my experiences in life are helping a lot of people, which is, which can be seen by the feedback that I get via email, some of which I've shared. I promise to share more. But it's just, finding the time to kind of review and make adequate things to it, rather than, falling into self-praising ramblings, for lack of better words, is kind of difficult. So let's get down to, after, saying thank you again to Chris for his voice message. Let's get down to starting out with defining to define the definition of achievement. There we go. And how that can at all relate to desire, or how the context can be built there, right? So first of all, achievement, I think, is something that you have to define for yourself in life. However, it can be broadened, or the meaning of the word can be broadened if you were lucky to have been one of those kids who got exposed to different cultures, or young adults, maybe, if you've taken your time after your finishing high school or whatever it is, before moving on in your education to dip your toes into different waters, if you've taken a year for work and travel in, Australia or other places, backpacking in Thailand, or whatever, suits your fancy. I think that's very enriching, and broadens your horizons significantly, to a degree where while before such a trip you would have deemed it an achievement to finish college with a certain GPA, now it may be that you see have a different reflection on a different culture, or different, whatever it is, of a different culture that has, broadened your horizon to a degree where you wanted to visit or you wanted to go to college because, or uni or whatever, to be, like everyone in your culture. And instead you find out, maybe you're exposed to the culture in the United States, which is very entrepreneurial, which in Europe is, not such a thing, at least not in such an uncomplicated fashion as it is in the US, for instance. And that was one of the points that got me going on being, self-employed, founding several companies and, trying to get them off the ground, and all of that without the help of any outside means. It's about scaling something from the ground up rather than, having a big sack of money from wherever, wherever that may come from, and then start the company that way. It's much more difficult to start something really off the ground, let me tell you, right? And that being said, achievement can be anything. If your definition of achievement is that, you want to run the hamster wheel for, 35 years, have kids, plant a tree, build a house. If that's your definition of achievement, that's fine. There's no one, no motivational guru asshole who should try to get you out of that. But what I'm saying is that broadening your horizon before you go into this tunnel or down this tunnel, that's a negative definition, but down this route of, living the more conventional and laid back life, I think, it's very enriching for anyone to really stick out their feelers and, look at how other people live and what makes them tick, because that's something you wouldn't be exposed to if you, stick around and directly go from high school to college to your job to, then be stuck there. Well, not stuck, be in that job for 35 years, get your kids married, plant a tree, build a house, that thing. And so for me, it was like being exposed to this insanely entrepreneurial culture. It was like, okay, I can do this. It's like, I'll just, start a company and there we go. But that was easier said than done, because while my mindset was there, it was like the mindset of the people around me was kind of fucked up. So it's like, are you the driver on the highway in the wrong side of the road, or are the others wrong? And I had to get that, and I had to learn that with bitter tears. But, then came social media, which allowed me to reach out globally and offer the shit that I was doing globally, which led to a significant amount of success, right? But it was this openness toward entrepreneurship, which allowed me to grasp that mindset and act upon it, right? For a lot of my friends going self-employed, it's kind of catching on in Germany, but or in Europe in general, but it's still not like, that you get rewarded for. You're still looked down upon. You're still the small and medium-sized enterprises, which gets ass raped by the IRS or the national equivalent to that. You pay shitloads of taxes to subsidize a lot of other stuff going on, and you got to deal with that, and that's something where, you have in other countries which are more open towards entrepreneurship, you've got a different perspective on it, a different relation. So anyhow, long story short, for me, it was never really, well, I contemplated for a moment on this whole family thing with a former girlfriend of mine. And it just didn't really feel good, right? And so it was like, okay, then, the relationship went down the drain, and I was like, okay, gotta do something else. And that's when I started the self-employed thing, started my first company, started my second company, then went into consulting, and everything else is pretty much history, right? But for me, it was always like go big or go home. I never saw myself operating with the limitations of a single market. In fact, I worked outside of Germany for so long that I wasn't able to obtain a value-added tax ID. This number, which every company gets. But in Germany in particular, you're entitled only to such a number when you reach a certain volume of business that you do in Germany. And I think for 6 or 7 years, I never got there, right? Because the business I was doing in Germany was so ridiculously low that it was that I never qualified for it, which led to certain problems because payments had to be in reference to that tax. Long story short, so it was go big or go home, and that for me was going to be my life. And the starting point of achievement is desire is the title of this episode, and my desire was always to change the world. Right. And to make it more positive. I was born into the internet age, not as a consumer, but actually as one of the developers. Well, not the developer of the internet. That would be, quite arrogant to say, but I did my part in advancing it significantly. And I influenced the user experience of probably billions and every internet user out there currently with stuff that I programmed and wrote about and published and whatnot. And so for me, it was like, where do I go next? And the desire was always born in that I, by pretty much other people. When I first started my first company, I was very specialized in search engine optimization, which was a new thing back then. And I was invited to a conference to speak there about a concept that I'd written. And while at the conference, I was approached by, I think it was a Belgian police officer. The conference was in the Netherlands. The first part of the day was good. The second part is kind of hazy. But the dude that walked up to me during that conference, that was during the not so hazy part, said, hey, look, you're so fucking good at explaining things. Go into consulting because, the references that you make, the proof of concept that you've got in your demonstration and everything, just screams for you to be a consultant. So I went down that route, and this desire was kind of born to improve the world further. And I thought, as a code monkey, essentially, working with other people and employees and whatnot, how far can you change the world? And that was for me like, not so much. Right? How can I improve the user experience of a lot of people? Okay, consulting, yeah, makes sense. So that desire was born. And then it was like, I did that for a couple of years. And then I went back into what is now referred to as information or, InfoSec, information security, IT security, cybersecurity, whatever you want to call it, because that was born, or that desire was reignited when I was exposed to the big Lolita City scandal that went on. It was like one of the biggest, most devious and disgusting child pornography platforms on the dark web back in the day. And I made the connection between, the obfuscation of people talking to each other on the web and in context to anonymous asset transfer through cryptocurrency or Bitcoin or whatever you want to call it, was problematic. So I got back into that field and started research and, put a lot of money and guts and time into researching that, only to become a globally recognized expert in the field within a matter of, half a decade. And all of those things, all of these steps in my life were fueled by desire to change the world. And, this desire led to then certain achievements, which to a degree I'm proud of, but never really, boasted about. And I think, if your desire is to have a family, and raise your kids in a secure environment and plant a tree, and change the world by that, every tree makes a fucking difference. That's up to you, period. Your desire is whatever your desire is. And if you pursue or if you take that desire as a fuel for your actions, you're going to be achieved. And from achievement comes satisfaction. And that will actually make you a pretty fucking happy person, much more happy than those people who are stuck in their lives and don't really have a desire for anything, which a lot of people don't. That being said, my jaw is starting to hurt. So we're going to cut this short. Have a successful day. If you have already had a successful day, have a good night. Send this episode or share this episode with, a friend or family member. If you found this episode, worth your while, I hope you did. Please subscribe to this podcast, and I'll see you again tomorrow with an all-new episode, and we're getting very close to the 100th. So take care, stay tuned, and we'll be in touch tomorrow.